And welcome. This is our third annual public speaking competition called Speak Your Mind. We're so grateful that you guys are here. My name is Michaela Anderson, and this is Laura Overby.
We would like to first thank our judges for coming out today. So that would be the department head, Dr. Scott Eldridge, Professor of Communication, Dr. Katarina Spazowska, and then our two students, judges, Max Poku Cam and Marie Spencer.
Let's give them a round of applause. We also want to thank our amazing contestants. We're so excited to hear you guys present, and we are going to go ahead and get started.
Our first public speaker today will be Logan Barrier.
Hello. Good evening. I am here tonight to talk to you all about energy. And I would like to start with an example. This light bulb, for example, takes 5 watts to stay fueled for 1 hour. In the United States, in 2023, 4.1 trillion kilowatt hours of energy were produced. Just to picture the vast magnitude of energy is astonishing. But what is also important is that this energy is set to increase. The needs of the various industries are supposed to go up in the coming years very starkly. And how we are going to keep up with those needs is very important for us to address. This is because the various I believe that the needs of these energy needs will be able to be met with nuclear power both in the coming years and in the far future. I've come to this conclusion using my own knowledge of sustainability that I gained from my environmental science curriculum, as well as through researching the leading topics and the leading journals on the subject, such as the Journal of Nuclear Energy and Design, the Journal of Environmental Management, and the Columbia Center for Global Energy Policy. Now, in this presentation, I will present to you the current energy infrastructure in the world, as well as nuclear power and its benefits, as well as the concerns surrounding it. And finally, I will conclude with the various actions that are being carried out to make a nuclear future possible. To begin, it is very clear that the global energy infrastructure is dominated by fossil fuels. Of the 4.818 trillion kilowatt hours produced in 2023, around 60% of that was fossil fuels such as coal, natural gas, and oil. And obviously these have a significant impact on the world, particularly through air pollution and climate change, through carbon emissions. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, fossil fuels are one of the leading causes of climate change in the world. Because of these concerns, many have begun pushing for a further adoption of more sustainable energy sources such as renewable energy and, of course, nuclear power. As you can see, nuclear power has already made a significant increase in the past few years. This is due to the many benefits that it holds over other energy sources, even some ones that are more renewable than it. According to the World Nuclear Association and Columbia University, nuclear power is a carbon-neutral energy source. It has a far lower cost for land, and it produces more energy per plant than almost any other source of energy. which means that it is an incredibly effective tool in the ongoing battle for sustainable development in the world. Additionally, there are many other benefits which it has for jobs and for science. However, there are many detractors to this movement who raise concerns surrounding nuclear power. These concerns include things specifically divided into concerns surrounding economics and concerns surrounding safety with the nuclear plants themselves and with nuclear waste. For example, in the economic side, many say that nuclear power would be too expensive to develop on a wider scale. However, many countries which have relied more on nuclear power than others, such as France, have actually inputted incentives for companies to produce nuclear power on a larger scale to make it more affordable. On the topic of safety, both nuclear plants and nuclear waste have been further scrutinized to produce a safer and more effective process, including safer inspections, more tight regulations, and research being done on the topics of nuclear waste, such as volume reduction and waste recycling. This brings us to the final leg of our presentation, which is the current state of energy research. This includes things like the smaller modular reactors, as well as advances involving automating certain plant functions, such as at the top left. That is one of the leading plants in automated features. However, there are many things that still need to be done before a nuclear future can truly become a reality. Primarily the need for education, legislation, and funding. And that is where I believe the next generation comes in. Oh, sorry. Oh, no, I'm very sorry. In this presentation, I've shown you the current state of energy in the world and how the energy requirements are expected to increase in the future, and how this can be met with nuclear power. I have shown you the benefits surrounding nuclear power as well as the concerns surrounding it, and concluded with the current state of development. And as I said previously, this is where the next generation comes into play. I believe that it is important for everyone in this room to consider the energy costs that are in their everyday lives, to live more consciously of what is occurring more on a larger scale. And to live life in a way that is more concerned with the greater global infrastructure, and possibly leading to a future where the infrastructure is cleaner and overall more sustainable. Thank you.
Next up, we would like to welcome Katie Borch.
Good evening, everyone. Today I'm going to talk to you about some different things, but before I get into that, I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first question is, who here has split their pants? You can be honest. That's about half the room. All right. My second question is, who here has needed alterations to their clothes at some point? That is pretty much the whole room. And then, who here knows how to sew? All right. Looking across, that is pretty much similar to this demographic right here, that 73% of Americans do not know how to sew. which is crazy because that means that 27% of Americans do know how to sew. So today I'm going to explain why sewing is a vital skill and why it's for everyone. So I have 3 main points that are: sewing is vital, it is healthy for you, and you need to be sewing. So if you look here at this chart, you can see that sewing, majority of the time, is done by people 40-plus-year-olds. So that's going to take up most of this. If you look, it stops at about 20 years old. That's because 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds, anyone below that makes up so nominal this demographic that they're not even on this chart. And this is all of America here. This is done by Zippa. Now, why am I here today to talk to you about sewing? First of all, I've been sewing for over 10 years. I've had this experience. As you can see, this top picture is myself and my sister. That's the first garment I had ever made. All right, and then in the middle, that is my junior year prom dress. So I have some experience, as well as I did make this. I've also done extensive research. I found people that have been sewing for 50-plus years, which is definitely my senior in sewing. So today I'm going to talk about my first point, which is why sewing is for everyone. You might be thinking that it's an outdated hobby, or that it's not for you, that it might be a grandma hobby. But I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's for everyone, because sewing utilizes your brain. It utilizes both your left and right sides of your brain, which is pretty cool. Your right side is for creativity. It's for creative thinking. It's for things like painting, for watercolors, things like that. And sewing definitely uses this. You use it for fashion design, to sketch your projects. You use it to create patterns and to sew things. You use it to make those different connections with the fabric. It also utilizes that left side of your brain, which is more mathematical. When your machine breaks, you're going to have to fix it. It's for the mechanics out there. It's for the engineers. It's also something that you're going to need to put fabric together. And sometimes you might not have enough. You have to engineer a way for this. It's also accessible. Everyone in here is wearing some sort of clothing, and that is your first step. Fabric is pretty much the most expensive thing when it comes to sewing, and all of you around me are wearing clothing. That's your first step. The next thing you're going to need is a needle and thread, and that's pretty easy to get. So now that I've talked about why sewing is for you, I'm going to talk about the benefits that you get from sewing. Because what does it do for you? The first thing it does is reduces stress. A study done by professors at UCLA said that sewing actually reduces your heart rate by 11 beats per minute. So once you start sewing, it'll reduce it until it gets to a calm state. It also strengthens your focus, and if you have dementia, or your family has dementia, runs in your family, it can decrease that dementia skills. Yeah. Sewing also encourages creativity and a hobby deficit, because in America, did you know that teens spend about 5 hours a day on their phones doom scrolling? This is a crazy amount of time. This is time that you could be using for a hobby like sewing, because sewing also gives you a sense of accomplishment. Once you finish a project, you will feel so good, and you will not even know the sense of accomplishment until you actually finish the project. Now that you know that sewing is beneficial for you, we're going to talk about why it's vital. So here's this graph that I brought up again. And you can see here that, again, 40-plus-year-olds take up the majority of sewists. However, what happens when these people pass on? What happens when the 30 and 40-year-olds pass on and they don't give the younger generation their sewing advice? What happens then? Well, did you know that sewing machines cannot be run by robots? They're only run by people. There's no AI out there that can run a sewing machine, that can run the fabric through the machine or use a presser foot. It is only humans. So it is a vital skill that we need, because if you want to continue wearing fashionable clothing, it's something that you need to be learning. Sewing is also a survival skill. If you're out in the wilderness and your clothes break or your backpack breaks, you need to learn how to sew so that you can live and survive. So to tie a knot, let's review. First of all, sewing is a health benefit. It helps dementia patients and it reduces your anxiety. Sewing is also a survival skill, and it's more than an outdated hobby. It's something that is modern. You see Balenciaga models out on the runway, and their clothing has come from people who know how to sew, which you can do too. So the next time you're tempted to doom scroll, the next time you're tempted to get on your phones, why don't you pick up a needle and thread? Why don't you find a hobby and start sewing? Because I think that it's more fun than you might think. Thank you.
We would like to welcome Kira Ernest next.
She's a national hero for this. Justice for
Hi everybody, my name is Kira Elise Ernest. I am a freshman BFA acting major with a double major in broadcast communications. And today I'm going to be talking to you guys about why Pluto should be reinstated as a planet. On August 24th, 2006, disaster struck. Fan favorite and beloved to all, Pluto was reclassified as a dwarf planet by the International Astronomical Union, otherwise known as the IAU. Ever since then, millions upon billions of people have been left confused and concerned and honestly a little bit empty about where this whole kind of went. Because Pluto was ripped away and it deserves to be reinstated as our 9th planet. So, you may be asking, why do I care about this? I'm an acting major who wants to go into the field and be on camera, maybe as a broadcaster. Why do I care about Pluto? Well, the answer is because it's always been one of my favorite planets. For as long as I can remember, I have been told that Pluto is a planet. When I was growing up in elementary and high school, when they taught you about the planets, there were 9 of them, and Pluto was the last one. It was the most recent. But in 2006, that was changed. And that was only 70 years after it was discovered in 1930. So within that time frame, what changed? What caused it to be different? It's something that we still don't really understand. So to talk about that, I'm going to first talk about why Pluto is no longer a planet. According to, there is a new formula for defining a planet, but Pluto is still out of the club by J. O. Callahan in 2024. The IAU changed the definition of a planet versus a dwarf planet. A dwarf planet is a planet that has enough orbit to, when it is going along its course, pull debris and other things out of its orbit to prevent it from crashing into the planet, but without enough orbit in order to pull itself into a perfectly round shape. So, not perfectly, but thereabout. When you look at Earth, Venus, Mars, Neptune, Jupiter, all of these planets are round in shape, and they're moons as well. Some of them might have a little bit bumpy textures, like the Earth isn't a perfect circle, but Pluto is very similar. It's in that round shape, which is why it's a planet. But it doesn't have enough orbit in order to pull debris out to prevent it from knocking into itself, which is where it falls into that category of the dwarf planet. Another thing that contributes to why Pluto is called a dwarf planet versus a normal planet is because of its size. Pluto is only about 1,400 miles wide, which is roughly half the width of the US. So to put that into perspective, it's not even a fraction of Earth's size. On top of that, Pluto has 5 moons, and Charon, being one of its biggest, is about half the size of Pluto. So 5 moons, one of which being half the size of it, kind of seems a little bit tricky, right? Well, even though Pluto is size, according to the IAU, that isn't one of the main criteria. It's more of its orbit and the science behind it all. So, to talk about why Pluto should be reinstated, the main thing is that it would just make people happy. I know me personally, when I was super young, I was told it was a planet, and all throughout my life until about 7th grade is when it was changed. And you kind of have to wonder, like, oh, for 12 years of my life, I've been told one thing, and now suddenly it's different, because that's when the curriculum changed. And that's a huge deal when it comes to science and new discoveries, is that there's just not enough information getting out for these things to be popular knowledge. And there's so many, like, false claims going around, and false news, and all that kind of stuff that contributes to that. You might hear one thing on social media, and then you go look into it, and it's not true. So what are you to believe, and what are you not? And also these back and forth decisions do cause distrust in not only our government, but also in the people we're supposed to trust, like NASA and the IAU. They're the people who really control everything when it comes to space, which is a vast universe that we have no clue about. So when they're the ones calling the shots and making all the decisions, how are you supposed to trust that if they're changing things every 50 years? And according to Going Around in Circles by S. Battersby, all of this change causes distrust not only in kids, it causes trust issues in their future, but it also causes all of these curriculum changes in school to cost billions of dollars in production of new textbooks, and which most of the time, let's be honest, students will pick up that textbook and they'll just toss it to the side and not even look at it. So what's the point in spending all of this money changing things about things that we're not even certain about? So, next time you look into the sky or think about our solar system, stop and think about how Pluto was robbed from us, from our solar system, robbed from being one of the main planets. And I want you to fight back against the IAU. While we might not be able to do anything individually, if we all come together and we tell them, this is what we want, there's a chance it could happen, and it would make billions of people around the world happy. I know it would make me happy, it'd make a lot of you happy to know that Pluto's a planet again, yay! And not only that, but it would also make everyone in other cultures happy too. Space is something that connects everybody, not just Americans. NASA is an international organization around the globe. So if that's something that they decide, it's changed for everyone, and it's something that can bring us all together. Thank you.
Next up is Ben Edwards.
I want you to raise your hand if you've heard of this word on the screen before. Just about everybody. This kind of word just really catches your attention, doesn't it? We all know what this word means. It's the intentional ending of one's life. The scary thing about suicide is that anybody could be struggling with it at any moment and we wouldn't know. It's possible someone in this room could be having struggles with it right now. Maybe a friend of yours has, or a family member. And I speak today not only with professional sources, but my own personal experience with suicide. So, today, using sources such as the JET Foundation, the CDC, and AFSP, I will be going over the rise in teenage suicide rates across America, the lack of suicide education in America, and why we need to implement said education and what we can do as well. So, suicide is the second leading cause of death for teenagers in America right now. Many statistics over the last few years have seen massive upticks. 12.3% of adolescents on a national level have had suicidal thoughts. 20.4% considered suicide, and 9.5% actually attempted on it. Now, there are all sorts of reasons why someone may want to end their life, but the CDC has identified 3 major factors. One of these is social media. Obviously, social media is a highlight reel of everyone's lives. It makes us feel like maybe we're not enough and we're not living the life that we could. Academic pressure is another huge one. There's so much emphasis on grades and competitiveness with, class rankings and everything that, again, make us feel like we're not enough. And it's also not helped by the fact that there's such a general stigma in mental health in our society in general. People think that struggling is wrong and makes you weak somehow. Now, the lack of knowledge comes in majorly with the fact that there's also no major education in America for suicide. Have y'all taken DARE? Raise your hand if you have. Yeah, DARE, major thing for drug use, drug prevention. We don't have something like that for suicide. 15 states only encourage suicide education. Not even require, encourage. 12 states actually require it. And even though they do require it, what is that education? Again, there's no one curriculum for that. And that's not even one of the biggest problems in schools. Alongside that lack of a curriculum, teachers in general, school staff as a whole, they're not prepared to handle this. Teachers lack the knowledge and general training for what to say. They usually have to rely on some other protocol. School psychologists and mental health workers as a whole are understaffed. And, well, it shouldn't be that way. School curriculums can be used to provide all kinds of information about suicide. This is what we need. You saw those statistics. They've risen up, they're not coming down, something is wrong, something needs to be done. We need to educate teenagers on these signs of suicide. If somebody is suddenly acting happy after a long period of being upset, or maybe giving away belongings that you know they wouldn't on a normal basis. What to say in the moment. So many are scared to reach out about suicide because they don't know what to say. So let's teach them that. And above all else, we need to provide emergency sources as well, like 988, which is the American Suicide Hotline. There is no one teenager that needs to go through any of this alone. And something else that we can all do, education or not, is just validate whatever they're feeling. Everybody struggles with something at some point. One of the biggest claims in society these days is that people who struggle are weak, which is not true at all. We all feel depression or anxiety at some point. So why are we making it seem like that's an issue? We're all human. We need to help people. I conclude this today by saying that it will be very hard to stop suicide as a whole. But we can definitely be doing far more than we're doing right now to actually help those who are struggling. Because you saw those numbers on the screen. They're not just numbers. Those are real human lives that we have lost. Those are empty chairs at a family dinner table that will never have a complete conversation again. Those are rooms that will never be touched again. Those are chairs at a graduation ceremony of a student that does not get to walk the stage. They are our future. What kind of society are we if they see no future? Are we supposed to just accept that? We can't. We need to do more to educate, to help, to validate, because suicide does not need to be the way it ends for anybody. You have a purpose, and you deserve to be here. Thank you.
Next is Josh Gaden.
Y'all hear me?
The tip of the mic fell off.
All right. The former Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, once said, "Knowledge is power. Information is liberating. Education is the premise of progress in every society, in every family." Think about those words for a second, and think about those words as I speak today. Today I want to talk about the Aspire program, which is a program from my home county in Forsyth County, where Winston-Salem is. It's a career readiness program that I think should be federally funded and implemented in every NC county. So let's start off talking about some issues plaguing our nation today. The first main issue I want to talk about is the cycle of poverty. The cycle of poverty is a major issue today, and that idea is the idea that there's a generation that is impoverished and they're in survival mode. They're only trying to get by because that's all they can do. That's all the resources they have to do. So because of that, they have no, they can't really pass down knowledge, and they spend money on opportunities to help the next generation. And so we see that poverty go on and on and on. And this idea is reinforced when we look at the decline of economic mobility in our nation. From a study from Yale News, we see that kids born in the 1940s had a 90% chance of out-earning their parents, while kids born in the mid-'80s only had a 50% chance of out-earning their parents. Do you think that's alarming at all? I think so, because I think about if we look at us in 20 years when we're studied on, the kids born in the mid-2000s, what's it going to be, 25%, 30%? We need to be proactive in fixing this issue as well. And so thinking about fixing this issue, I want to talk about the Aspire program. Apart from those that heard my speech this morning, who has heard of the Aspire program? Are you from Winston? Oh, that's awesome. So one person, so not a lot. So I get to tell you about this program today. So this program is a week-long process where students are able to learn about career readiness, building a personal brand, creating a resume, self-exploration, and communication. And at the end of the process, there's a mock interview that all the students go through with all these companies. And so they're not just mock interviews because they are able to get paid summer internships from it. And additionally, this program provides access to transportation to the program, back home, and to the internships that they get and back home, which also makes this program very exceptional. So why do I think this program should be implemented? Oh, I forgot something. My plan is for this to be federally funded and implemented in every NC county. So how do we do that? There are 58 community colleges that serve 100 counties. So what you're looking at a map of is community colleges, but what also you're looking at a map of is all the places we could have Aspire in North Carolina. Apart from this little part in the east, everything is drivable to for these students and accessible for them. And I use this map to say, all we need to implement this program is the funding. We have a plan to put it in. All right, so why do I think this program will be effective? Well, we know that youth employment programs increase youth earnings and reduce interactions with the justice system in the long run. According to a study in 2023 by the United States Joint Economic Committee, so taking that public safety angle and taking that economic success angle. Additionally, the Aspire program offers mentors to these students both in the program and in their internships, and a study in 2008 from the National Library of Medicine shows a direct link from having mentors to career success for the protege. Who can say that they have had a mentor before? Where do you think you would be without that mentor? That's what these students are going through who don't have that. And for those that raise your hands, that's, I hope you get a mentor. Oh, there it is. There's the mic. Additionally, this program offers a sense of confidence to these students. I'll say I got confidence from it because I was able to go into my internship and say, man, I might belong in this setting. I might be able to succeed here. I might be able to succeed in this four-year university that I'm really worried about going to next year. And it offers that to these students. They might find a career that they really love and they want to pursue. That's a direct link, or they find an indirect link. And that's like, man, I hate this internship. I hate a legacy, but I can do it. I can see a four-year university in my future. I can see professional fields in my future, maybe at Novant Health, maybe at Greater Winston-Salem. And so a study in 2024 by the National Library of Medicine, again, reinforces this idea. It shows that confidence and self-efficacy plays a critical role in self-exploration, environmental exploration, and career exploration for these students. So I want to think about a future with Aspire. Aspire in Winston-Salem has helped so many students. This last cohort had 72 graduates from all types of Title I schools in North Carolina. And what this Aspire program has done for me and for the people in my county, I want it to do for everybody in NC County, in North Carolina. As we see these students succeed, we can see the rest of our youth succeed. And so to end this off, I want to say it's on us to support programs like this and support our youth and our future, because they are the backbone of our society. Thank you.
Nancy can tell me.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Imagine the fear of going to school and not knowing if you're going to make it back home because of the possibility of a school shooting happening. As college students, we have a high chance of this happening anywhere, including on our campus. Last year at Brown University, 2 students unfortunately lost their lives and 9 others were wounded as a result of the school shooting. I am sure if those 9 other students who were wounded were told earlier that day that they would be victims of a school shooting, they wouldn't have believed it. Hello everyone, my name is Nancy Kenetomi, and today I'm here to persuade you that stricter gun laws are necessary for stopping school shooting. I will discuss specifically how easy access to gun laws contributes to an increase in firearm homicide, and how laws such as the Shall Issue Law and Stand Your Ground Law also contributes to that, and the importance of imposing strict background checks before issuing guns to citizens, and how doing that leads to a reduction in firearm homicide. Based on the multiple peer-reviewed studies I used in conducting my research, according to Smith and Bellaser, it was found that easy access to firearms is a key risk factor for firearm violence. For example, according to a study done by Miller, it was found that for every 1% increase in household-owned gunnership, youth-involved firearm violence increased by 2.4%. Firearm access is a key risk factor to firearm homicide. Because of law such as the Shall Issue Law, which requires that permits should be issued to all eligible applicants, citizens can now easily access guns. According to a study done by Michael Segal over 26 years, it was found that Shall Issue Law was significantly associated with an increase in firearm homicide. Another law associated with an increase in firearm homicide is the Stand Your Ground Law. Stand Your Ground Law, also known as the SYG Law, removes the duty to retreat from public spaces, allowing individuals to use deadly force in self-defense if they legally perceive a threat and they were legally there. According to the US Vital Statistics, which investigated the impact of SYG laws, it found that states that enacted these laws had an increase in homicide. Firearm violence is the only factor that is consistently noted as a necessary prerequisite in school shooting. On the other hand, according to a study done by Lee, states that had stronger gun laws, such as the Permit to Purchase law, had a decrease in firearm homicide. Furthermore, states that practiced background checks also had a decrease in firearm homicide. Background checks shouldn't be limited to criminal history alone. They should also include fugitive standing, mental illness, and restraining order. According to a study done by Segal, we found that states that practice background checks saw a decrease in firearm homicide by nearly 15%. Some people argue that guns are necessary for protection, and that enacting strict background laws is an infringement on their Second Amendment rights. However, constitutional rights is not absolute. Just as free speech does not protect incitement and threats to life, easy access to gun should be subject to regulation. Today, as I wrap up, I talked about how easy access to gun leads to an increase in firearm violence, how laws such as the Shall Issue Law and the Stand Your Ground Law also contribute to that, and the importance of enacting strict background checks before issuing guns. Imagine a future where the fear I spoke about earlier does not exist, where students can easily focus on their studies and communities without having to worry about school shootings, because the legislative prioritizes their lives over easy access to weapons. I urge you today to contact your representative to demand support for for universal background checks before issuing gun laws. Thank you.
Next will be Janiyah Kidd.
Hello everyone, my name is Janiyah Kidd. I am a third year here at Western Carolina University and I am a psychology major. Now, I feel it's important for me to mention to you all that I am a psychology major, not because I'm about to read you right now, maybe, but because one of the most interesting things in psychology to me is the concept of self-perception. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how your fear of judgment, self-perception, is stopping you from achieving the future that you so rightfully deserve. So, before we begin, I would like to ask you all what I like to call a thought question. And I call it a thought question because I want you to think about it for the remainder of the speech and hopefully after this speech is over with. My thought questions to you are, have you ever stopped yourself from doing something, even as small as raising your hand in class because you were afraid you had the wrong answer? Or have you ever had this really nice outfit that you wanted to wear out, but you were afraid of what people would say about your outfit? That right there is what we call the fear of judgment. It's interesting to me because even this morning and yesterday, as a person who studies psychology and knows about the feelings of perception and how sometimes it's just in our head, even I, a person who has taken on multiple leadership roles, has performed on stages for years, and is actively pursuing a career that requires me to be social all the time. Even I have held myself back from opportunities and from doing things because I was afraid to be judged. So it's important that we talk about today how the fear of judgment prevents people from pursuing opportunities. It limits your personal growth and must actively be challenged in order to secure a successful future. Excuse me. This isn't just a theory for me. As you know, as I just described, it's very personal. So, I know that I'm not alone. Especially as students, we're constantly put in high-stakes social environments where we're constantly being evaluated socially, academically, and all of the above. I'm sure a lot of you have been in situations where you've been isolated because you were afraid to join the broader group. That right there is your fear of judgment taking over. So why does it matter so much? First, let's understand the problem. Our fear of judgment is incredibly common. Everyone in this room, I'm pretty sure, has had one of those moments that we just described. It deeply affects our behavior and is closely tied with social anxiety, where people are overly concerned about others' perceptions of themselves. This fear can be so strong, as I stated, that it stops us from doing things that we desire, from taking on that job opportunity because you're afraid that they're going to tell you you're not good enough or you're not qualified enough. Avoiding those situations might feel comfortable to us in the moment, but in reality, you stopping yourself from doing that is what is keeping you from achieving the future you deserve. Even more importantly, it's conditioning your brain to stay comfortable instead of getting out of your comfort zone and exploring life the way that you should. So, there's actually a perfect example of this in the musical Hamilton. If you haven't watched Hamilton, you should. It's a very great show. But one of the characters, who technically is the main antagonist, Aaron Burr, is so obsessed with Alexander Hamilton in his life. You see, Aaron Burr is the type of person who likes to wait for his opportunities to come to him. There's literally a whole song about it. And one of the things that he talks about is how Alexander Hamilton aggressively and relentlessly pursues his life opportunities. And because he's doing that, without regard for what others think of him, he's actively achieving everything that he desires. And he's so jealous. You hear the song, Room Where It Happens. He really wants to be there. But what's stopping him from being in the room where it happens is because he is afraid of putting his opinions out there, because he's afraid of what people will think about him. So now I want you to imagine two different futures. I want you to imagine the future where you do not actively pursue everything that you want to do, where you aren't aggressive in your pursuit as Alexander Hamilton was, where you stay quiet in the rooms and you don't raise your hand in the classrooms, where that professor could be the bridge between you getting an internship and not. And then I want you to imagine a future where you do pursue those things, where you do wear that outfit that you love. The difference between those two futures is the fact that you didn't let anyone else stand between you and getting what you deserve. So, to end us, I want you to think the next time that you feel that voice in your head telling you, I'm not good enough, that voice telling you that you're going to be laughed at for raising your hand in class and getting the answer wrong. The next time you do that, I want you to think to yourself, is this fear protecting me, or is this fear holding me back? And then I want you to choose to act anyway, because your future is too important to let somebody else's opinions gauge it. Thank you.
Next, we will have Adrian Miller.
Or single poem. I think this will work. My name is Adrian Miller, and when I was 13 years old, I have been threatened to get shot in the head in my school just for being queer. I was sitting beside a kid in math class. He was playing a shooter game on his computer. How he managed that, I don't know. And he turned to me, turned his computer to face me, and said, as he shot a man in the game, point blank in the eyes, "This is what I'm going to do to you queers." I obviously was mortified. I excused myself from the class and I walked over to the guidance counselor's office. Upon telling her what happened, she looked me dead in my eyes as I was very afraid, and she said, "What do you want me to do about it?" That's when I realized no one was there to help me. Not my parents, not teachers at my school, no one. I had tried to get moved away from that kid in the class, to no avail. This verbal harassment and bullying is a very common thing for queer children. According to the Trevor Project,
institution that focuses on queer youth and how to get them help says this: 52% of LGBTQ youth get bullied. 33% of it is in person, and 42% of it is online. 32% of it is just straight up verbal harassment and bullying. This is something I experienced with me and my friends. We would get called slurs, faggot, dyke, whatever they could throw at us. There were videos made of us and posted online in high school. One of my friends got a video made of her that was passed around by the football team, saying that she was a dyke and she just needed the right man to fix her. Needless to say, none of the football players got punished. They got away. These things that happened to us, they made us feel alone and scared. And when people feel alone and scared, they are more likely to turn to dark places, that being suicide. Another statistic by the Trevor Project says that LGBTQ minors are more than 4 times as likely to commit suicide, and at least 1 attempts every 45 seconds. By the time I have made this speech, at least 2 minors who are queer have attempted to commit suicide. This is not how it should be, at all. No child should have to suffer and think to themselves that the world would be better if they were just gone. And the evidence shows this, that if one adult had just reached out to us, had pulled us from that darkness, we would have been better off. The Trevor Project says that LGBTQ young people who reported living in very accepting communities attempted suicide at less than half the rate. If adults were more accepting and more helpful, we could cut those numbers by a huge percentage. And vice versa, in a study done about LGBT acceptance and mental health, they found that among LGBT individuals, sexual minority emerging adults with higher levels of family rejection were more likely to report attempted suicide, high levels of depression, illegal drug use, and engagement in unprotected sexual intercourse. All of these things I have experienced in my own community. When I was 13, I had to play suicide hotline for all of my friends because none of the adults around us gave a damn. They didn't care about us, they wanted us gone. I was 13, underprepared, and under-equipped. I was scared and alone. I lost friends due to drug usage because escapism from the violence that we faced in high school was far better than staying present, staying together, and staying whole. I had to talk my friends through getting treatment for STDs because they engaged in unprotected sex to chase that high and to feel cared about and loved. At the end of the day, if some adults had just reached out to us, we would have been saved. We would have had a lot less scars on our bodies, and we would have been a lot safer. And I'm hoping through this, I can show you that even if you don't agree, if you reach out your hand to these children, because that's what they are at the end of the day, children, you will save their lives. Sometimes all it takes is one kind word to keep somebody from dying. Thank you.
That was our last speaker. We're going to take just a moment to tally up the scores, review judges' thoughts, and then we'll come back with our top 3 from our judges' scoring. During this time, you're welcome to come and congratulate our contestants, talk to them, but we ask that contestants, you stick around and we're going to take pictures of the group in this waiting time. So, thank you, and we'll be back in just a minute. and it was really close. Our judges, we had to have a tiebreaker, so just know with our top 3, you guys did great. So we're gonna start in our 3rd place, and if you'll come up here and stay up here until we're done, we'll get some pictures. So our 3rd place is Ben Edwards.
In 2nd place is Nancy Kenatomi.
Which makes our 1st place winner of today, Katie Borg. Thank you again to all of our contestants and our audience and our judges and our film crew. We're so grateful for everyone who helped us make today possible. We look forward to hopefully seeing you next year. All of our other contestants, if you'll just wait here and we'll get a group picture in front of our sign. So thank you, y'all are free.